Hello and welcome back to Shame Over the Drink Less podcast. I'm so glad you're here for part two of diving into the book Anti-Diet by Christy Harrison and all the correlations and connections that it has, not only with the importance of intuitive eating and mindfulness when we're eating, of course, but also with consumption of all sorts. So what we had talked about in episode one was not only how we've been impacted culturally, societally. Everything in our DNA is basically telling us that being skinny is good, that the all or nothing mentality is great, that weight loss is something that needs to be prized and huge. And this goes hand in hand with so many of us when it comes to our drinking. Why? Because it focuses on the all or nothing, the black or white mentality, which can be incredibly triggering for most of us, myself included. That is entirely why Shame Over was created, was everything out there was basically never drink again. I wasn't there. I didn't think I needed that. I figured there were plenty of other things I could try, but everything was telling me, nope, you just need to stop drinking for a period of time. That was very triggering for me. What did that make me want to do? Just go drink more, knowing that, oh, if I'm never going to get it again, then I might as well enjoy it, right? As much as I can, seeing it as that reward piece. So really, last time we dove into diet culture and not only the historical context that it plays, but Christy Harrison's insights for really how it has made us who we are today with food consumption, with alcohol consumption is kind of what I drew in. And again, playing a role with marketing and advertising and what we see in TV and the movies on reality TV, right? All of these things are subconsciously training us and grooming us to think one way about certain things. One of my favorite shows in my coming of age years, especially college, was Sex and the City. What did they do? They went out all the time, it appeared. They would sleep around all the time. They would, they had these glamorous lifestyles. And here I am out of college and not only participating in some of those behaviors, but wondering why, like, my life isn't as glamorous as it's supposed to be, right? I was taught by watching, yes, it's Hollywood, but we still think that that could be life. Look at reality TV. All reality TV is telling us is this is how your life could be because this is real, when we know in fact that reality TV is 90+% made up. There's hired actors on there, there's scripts, there's, all of that. So again, just reminding ourselves that what we see is just a very small portion of the reality. So this kind of goes into binge eating, binge drinking, binge everything, consumption again of all types, whether it's food and drink, whether it's social media, whether it's spending or sex or anything along those lines. You can apply these learnings, these lessons, these skills that we're going to talk about more today into your daily habits so that you can understand, hey, this is actually a trigger for me that I didn't necessarily realize. Because again, I want to remind us when we go into that restriction phase, our body physically, emotionally, psychologically tells us that we need to hang on to stuff. So that makes us basically, want to store away to hibernate in a sense. We're not going to get it for whether it's ever again or for a period of time. So we need to hoard it. We need to binge it. We need to consume to excess. And as we know, that is never a healthy thing, no matter what it is, really should never be overconsumed. And that is why we're here today to break the cycle. One of the big things that you may or may not be familiar with your own behaviors is emotional eating and drinking. I've kind of always known this. A lot of times we'll see emotional eating or emotional drinking as just, being sad. When I really realized that I was more of an emotional eater than I thought was when I realized I was eating out of boredom. Boredom is an emotion. You don't necessarily see that as an emotion. We think of emotions as happy or sad or angry or, like the extreme feelings. Boredom, I would say for the clients that I work with, boredom is a huge reason why they are drinking without realizing it. And why that is so important is that is so much more the habitual, mindless consumption, which we do, whether you're doing it with food, with alcohol, or with your phone. I guarantee all of us are guilty of doing it with our phones. We are participating in these habits. So, what I really want to encourage you to do is to really try to understand the emotions, the thoughts, the feelings that are going on when you are about to overconsume or when you are in the process of overconsuming. For me, one of the rules that I'd come up with for myself was I will not drink for negative emotions. You realize very quickly, especially with two young kids, how much you would normally go for a glass of wine in my case when you've had a really stressful day, when you just need a break, when you're exhausted emotionally, mentally, physically from keeping these two precious little humans alive. It made me want to drink in the sense that I had been stressed out so many times before or had a bad day, or, it was my reward in a sense for getting through the day. Every time that we're redoing these behaviors, we are confirming to our body physically and mentally and emotionally that when I have this feeling, this is what will make me feel better. So when I am stressed, if I have a drink, I will feel better. When I have a bad day, if I have a drink, I will feel better. If I am sad and I have a drink, I will feel better. And replace emotion with drink, can be food, it can be whatever consumption, with I will feel better. And see how much you're doing this. As you're going through this process, lose the judgment. You have done this so many times that that's why it's so natural and habitual and mindless for you. That's okay. The beautiful thing is once you are aware of it, that is when you can start to change these habits, change these behaviors, and rewire your brain so that you're no longer, I feel like this, I want to do this, I will feel better, right? So the emotional triggers can be one of the best things that we can really try to focus on and come up with new ways to cope, new mechanisms that we can try to incorporate to really get through that time. Obviously, boredom is a huge one. Stress, sadness, those are some of the biggest feelings. A lot of times, yeah, we drink for happy reasons, right? But so many of it is more that negative emotion. If you take nothing away, I like to say I had I don't even remember what it was, but I had someone at a conference or something that I was at that said, like, we cannot consume everything, like, and retain it, right? So if you, regardless of what you're doing, if you want to learn, if you want to get better every day, take just one thing that you can learn and take away and apply it and do that. Don't focus on all the different things, just one thing. And that has been completely transformational for me. So if I can challenge you to take away just one thing from this, I would say see if you can challenge yourself to not consume, whether it's drinking, eating, social media, your phone, whatever it is that you're working on here, or whatever is unhealthy that you're trying to get better boundaries with. Do not turn to that when you are having a negative emotion. You are going to be mind blown at how often this is just very natural. And again, no judgment, just understanding this. We cannot change anything we're unaware of. The whole point of this is for that awareness. And then we develop the understanding that leads us to be able to make those small little micro changes that can change into massive habit changes long term. Another part with this that I really, really want to dive into is the social influences and just the social norms, especially when it comes to alcohol. I know I've talked about this previously, but here, at least in America, we are not supposed to drink until we're 21. Most of us, that's not the case, right? We'll experiment typically in high school, if not before. Then we go to college where we don't even turn 21 till typically senior year. So we have our entire first 3 years of college where we're not supposed to drink. And what is the purpose of college or universities, at least here typically in America? Binge drinking culture, right? I did not have one single event, party, anything that I went to where we were savoring a glass or two of wine, right? That was never the case. We might pregame with that and then we'd go out from there. But, it's just, that was not the norm. So how do we expect that all of a sudden, when we're having all these life things happen, that the norm is for us to, oh, let's just have a drink. That's not how we learned how to do it. That's not how we habitually practiced for so long. So that is why we are in these habits that we are. Again, it's just understanding this so that you can have that behavior awareness to be able to make those changes moving forward. I look at things, especially Thanksgiving. People love Thanksgiving. I hate it. One, I always felt like I struggled with my weight. So having an event one day that was all about not only eating, but like binge eating, right? Where the whole point is like you wear your flat pants, don't wear anything tight because you're gonna be so full. Like having an entire day around that, it was just very triggering for me. I hated it, and especially as I got older, and I didn't typically love the food either. So it wasn't like it was like my favorite meal of all time, but it was all this stuff that like some of it I liked, some of it I didn't, but I would still eat it because you're supposed to finish your plate, and that's what you do for the holidays. You got to get everything because you don't want to offend anyone, and blah 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 blah. So just looking at situations like this where it's all about overconsumption. New Year's, another great example. The whole point of the holidays is, like we're storing up for winter. So we're having all these looser behaviors in a sense. We're eating a lot more, we're drinking a lot more, basically starting not Halloween, then at least by Thanksgiving through Christmas and into New Year's. But then January 1st, what do? We literally say, I'm never going to do that again. New year, new me. We fail almost every time at that because it is just so unrealistic, right? But this has been such a societal norm that it's kind of like a joke, like, huh, what resolution are you going to try for 2 weeks? What is the point of that? None of us want that. None of us want to be a part of that joke because, like, when we set a goal for ourselves, we want it to mean something. We want to attain it. We want to achieve it. And with that, there's so many ways that we can do it, but it's breaking it down so that it is, like I like to say, more in sip-sized chunks, as opposed to going from never running a mile to running a marathon 2 weeks later. Like you physically can't. It's probably impossible. So just understanding all these behavioral habits and where you fall in line with all of this. Another one for any of my Catholic friends out there, I am not Catholic, but Lent is all about giving something up for those 40 days, right? Mardi Gras is I believe it's the Fat Tuesday is the day before Ash Wednesday. So yeah, there you go. The whole point of that is to get it all out of the system so that you can go those 40 days without it and then bring it back in. Like, do you guys see none of this is healthy behavior in the sense that it is all black or white, all or nothing, encouraging binging, and very, very opposite of moderation. And what we're focusing on here is moderation, is mindfulness, is intuitiveness, in checking in with yourself and understanding what you're feeling, what you're thinking, what your body wants or needs or is craving, so that you can move forward accordingly or nourish it accordingly. A big part of this is also peer pressure. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times that people are, really into it and super excited about like the progress that they're making or start their goals. And then all of a sudden someone's like, oh, but here, I just have one glass, you're fine. Or I made this for you. Or, again, whether it's with food, with drinks, with anything. And especially as women, we feel like we don't want to offend anyone. Like we don't want to make them feel bad. Oh, they already made that for me. Like, well, today was a booze-free day, but they already opened the bottle, so might as well at least have a glass, right? The only one that feels bad at the end of the day is us. And we're mad at ourselves. We're frustrated with ourselves. We gotta stop doing this, ladies. We have to. Most of all, show up for yourself like your best friend would, but try to make sure that we're not part of that peer pressure mentality. If someone is doing, they're on a diet, they're drinking less, they're not drinking, basically just say, how can I support? If they know, they'll tell you. If they don't, but that's it. Leave it at that. Nothing else matters. We are responsible for ourselves and no one else. With that, a few things that we can really focus on when it comes to intuitive consumption for, I guess, managing both alcohol and food. There's a couple different things I really want to get into here, but intuitive consumption, I'm assuming that we know what that means, but just to confirm, it's really involving listening to our body, listening to our mind, checking in with our hunger cues. Are we full? Are we thirsty? What are the thoughts and feelings that are going on? Or am I just behaving out of habit? Is this all just mindless, right? So that is the whole point of intuitive consumption. And the principles behind it is really rejecting diet mentality, rejecting the all or nothing, black or white mentality, and honoring yourself, honoring your hunger cues, your hunger levels, respecting the fullness, and most of all, just making peace with it. And where this is obviously very different with alcohol than it is with food, we need food to survive, plain and simple. Alcohol, we don't. We do not need alcohol to survive. Alcohol also impacts us. It impairs the judgment. That is really the purpose of alcohol in a sense. So it is a lot harder for us to be able to honor our cues when we've lost track of them because we're over that element, right? So that's where I always encourage you to understand and know your number and figure out what that means to you. And for women, this can be very different based on where you are in your cycle, what your hormone levels look like, what you ate, what you drank, if you worked out that day or not, how well hydrated you are, all these different things. But it can also make a difference if you're drinking wine, if you're drinking beer, if you're drinking hard alcohol. All of these things really can make a difference. But for me personally, I know that 2 is my magic number. 2 or less, I'm perfect. I have no issues with what I'm saying, what I'm thinking, if I drive or not, everything's fine. If I start the third, I don't even have to finish the third, but as soon as I get onto that third, that's when it's playing with fire, right? So making sure that I stay under the 2, or if I'm going to have more than 2, spread them very far out so they're well over an hour apart. Your liver can only process 1 alcoholic drink per hour. And the alcoholic drink, look up what the measurements are, but we're talking like 5 ounces of wine, 12 ounces of beer, 1.5 ounces of hard liquor, just on average, right? So your liver can only process that. If you are having 3 in an hour, hour and a half, or even 2 hours, your body can't process that. So that's when it's so much harder to be able to check in, to understand what we're doing, to basically we're going to feel the effects, but then we're just constantly chasing those effects, even though we can't really get that high again. So we're just like doing nothing but harm for ourselves. So making sure that you know your number is going to be really important. When it comes to alcohol, also realize that societal expectations are probably going to come into the mix when it comes to, if we're drinking socially, if we're out with people who are used to us drinking or used to us being kind of the leader or something along those lines. At the end of the day, we just have to know that we're doing this for us, for no one else. And when you have that confidence, a lot of times the rest dies down very quickly. It's when we're unsure of ourselves and our decision making that it's really easy to make us question, to make us, okay, I guess I'll just have one, and not stay true to ourselves and who we are and what we want out of this experience, for example. So really recognizing, do I want to drink? Am I drinking out of habit? Am I drinking out of social pressure? What's going on here? And again, that's checking in with your thoughts, your feelings, and just constantly checking in with yourself. One thing that I really want us to acknowledge here, as we're going through this process, and no one really talks about this, there's a morning. there is a mourning and a grieving that might need to be done, especially depending on each person and their level and where they were at. But I mean, it's for me, everyone that I was with, I would always absolutely. I was the first to be like, let's do happy hour, let's do brunch, let's do mimosas. Like it was what we did. I always participated if I wasn't the ringleader. It takes time, and I'm sure for some of my friends, it was kind of uncomfortable for them when all of a sudden I wasn't, because one, we're just all so fearful of judgment, but I had to remember that that was a part of me, that was who I am, and I'm becoming someone that's no longer a part of. Doesn't mean good, bad, it's indifferent in a sense, but we need to acknowledge that, because I feel like that can be a really hard thing for us to even comprehend. Like, oh, why would I need to mourn this? If you've only known yourself in social situations with alcohol, if you've only known yourself in sad situations or anger or stressful situations with a glass of wine, there's going to be a mourning and a grieving process. So I want you to understand that and to just love yourself through it and show yourself that compassion, because that's when we need it more than we realize. As we're going through this, you're not only going to see a significant improvement ultimately in your mental and physical health, you're going to have a more positive relationship with all forms of consumption, but most of all with yourself. And that is because of the love and the compassion and the mindfulness that you have around things, that you're checking in with yourself, you're listening to your intuition. Women, we are so intuitive, but we constantly are second guessing ourselves or putting our intuition off to the side. Those days are done. Listen to your intuition. It will always tell you correctly. So some of the practical tips that I want to make sure that you guys walk away with is mindful eating and drinking. Obviously, number one. There are so many different ways that you can do this, but the biggest thing is to remember that there's no judgment. Mindfulness and meditation, the whole purpose is being present. It is not judging any of the thoughts that you have and letting them come and go as they please, right? That is the whole purpose of mindfulness. And any monk that has been practicing their entire lives for this will admit they do not have a silent mind. Yeah, they can train themselves to get close to there, but they still have things that come in and out. They don't have judgment for any of those thoughts that are coming in and out. So understand that when you are practicing this mindfulness with eating and with drinking, there's going to be a lot of stuff coming in and out. You just need to remain neutral, acknowledge it, and then move on. Especially consumption of food and alcohol, it can be a wonderful experience. You get to experience the taste and the flavors and the aromas and the texture, the smell, there are so many great things that come along with it. Make it a part of that experience, especially if that's how it's been. That is one of the biggest things I see when people basically replace their nightly, we'll say, glass of wine with a booze-free alternative that they don't like, or when they're doing something else during that time that is just white knuckling. They've lost this experience that they've made for themselves. And all of a sudden, they're like, well, I'm miserable. This sucks. Yeah, of course, because before you were nourishing yourself, you were taking care of yourself, you were being mindful and present and in the moment. That might have been the first time all day that you were. And now all of a sudden, you're doing something that just pisses you off or that doesn't fill you up emotionally. So you're going to have that disconnect. So when you're dealing with the mindfulness, definitely make that a big part of it. You can do things such as creating like some type of calm environment. I definitely did this with my daughter when she was a toddler, just a calm corner. So if she ever needed a minute to, collect her thoughts or scream or do whatever she needed to do, there's the calm corner. I think that there's so much that we do with our children that we need to do with ourselves. And that is one of them. Creating that calm environment, creating a space where we can check in with ourselves, where we can journal, where we can do the mindfulness or the meditation practice, where we can listen to our body, our mind. Where are we feeling things? Are we hungry? Are we thirsty? Like, what's all going on? We are so used to multitasking all day long that it is very hard for us to do this because we're like constantly like, there's something to be done at all times, right? So the more that we can practice this mindfulness and the intuitive practices, it's going to help us so that we don't always feel so like stressed and out of place. So much of this I touched on a little bit earlier, but it's how we feel about ourselves, how we talk to ourselves, and how we talk about ourselves. So this is something I really want you to start listening to and focusing on as you go about your day, your week, is how do you talk to yourself? If you will say eat something that wasn't on the list or overeat something, or today was supposed to be a be-free day and instead you had a glass of wine or a bottle of wine, do you all of a sudden, God, I suck, I'm horrible? Is it berating comments like that? Or do you see it as yesterday was not a great day? Today's a new day. I'm going to start again. This is what I can do to set myself up for success. This is how I can be good to myself. Most of us are the first one, not the second, right? So getting used to how we're talking to ourselves in all situations, positive, negative, indifferent. Also, how we talk about ourselves. It is very easy to use self-deprecating humor. I used to think it was so funny till I realized that it's not funny, it's uncomfortable for everyone. And that's just like why it's just awkward, right? So are you using self-deprecating humor ever? If so, just get rid of it. And again, as soon as you go to say it, you can just close your mouth. You don't have to explain yourself, just be done. It's kind of like when the mindfulness, the meditative, as these thoughts are coming in, just keep letting them go. Keep letting them go. The same negative thoughts, just you don't have to finish it. Just let it go and move on to the next. Journaling can be so incredibly helpful for this. I have personally been really trying to get into journaling, and I have not been successful at the consistency of it, but I do have a plan for August. So if anyone wants to do a challenge, let me know. Happy to have you join in on that challenge. But the journal can really help not only with tracking, but understanding any of the triggers that we might be physical, emotional, anything along those lines. It can really help us really understand that, I guess, gain the valuable insight that we're ultimately trying to figure out. So now I want to focus on how we create this balanced approach, because yes, this has been a lot of information, hopefully a lot of good information, but I want you guys to have some concrete stuff to be able to, moving forward, this is what I can do. Absolutely, number one is setting realistic boundaries. Boundaries can be so hard, especially as women, just for so many different reasons, but boundary setting is going to be imperative. A big part of this is having that not only self-awareness, but the understanding of what we want, what we are and are not willing to do, but also the confidence in that. And that all comes through time and through practice. Two, I want you to focus on moderation over restriction. I know we've been hitting on that, and that's what essentially the entire anti-diet book is about, but moderation, not restriction. When we're focusing on moderation over any of these strict rules, it allows us to enjoy, to experience a variety of different things, but we do so with reasonable amounts because we're checking in and we know, like, oh, I don't need all of that. This was fine. So when we're doing this, we don't feel deprived either. That is the other thing that I've definitely learned. And I can say I have experienced this firsthand with my weight, with my drinking, with everything, even my social media usage. Now, if I can tell that I am getting like sucked down the rabbit hole, I will turn my phone off, put it on airplane mode, literally put it in the different room, just so that I know that I need to take a break because I am scrolling mindlessly, essentially. With that, offer yourself some flexible guidelines. And I don't mean that it's, you say like, I'm going to have 3 booze-free days this week and you have 0 and you're like, it's okay, I'm being flexible. That's not what I mean. So be understanding with that. Maybe you say, looking at your calendar for the week, I have this, 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 so I'm going to plan for 3 days where I can drink. We'll take the other days off. And then all of a sudden something pops up. All right, if you need to add in a day, do that. Can you decrease the amount from the other days? Can you take one of those days off instead? How can you be flexible with this? The big thing here is nothing is set in stone, and really starting to understand and appreciate that. The more you practice it, again, what we practice, we get really good at. I have found it really helpful to set a limit, at least early on. I would set a limit for the number of drinks I wanted over the week. I typically do it on Sunday, look at my week ahead, and then decide like here, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And then each week I would see if I could maintain or decrease. And over time, I was easily able to get there. My piggy banking, if you've not seen or listened to that yet, please go back. That is absolutely fantastic. That is a great, great, great tool to be able to get into that practice. But setting the number of drinks per week, the number of booze-free drinks, how many drinks you're going to have in an actual sitting, all of that matters. But also, how can you prepare for that? So yes, you have a plan, but now how can you prepare to set yourself up for success? With that, diet is going to come into it. And what I mean by diet is nutrient dense foods and drinks. At the end of the day, as with everything, it's all about balance. So what can you do to ensure your diet is including the variety of nutrient dense foods? We're talking fruits and vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins, healthy fats. All of these are going to give us the necessary nutrients that we need and will help us to maintain that satisfaction, which is what we want, right? Hydration is also huge. You guys know our bodies are mostly made of water. The planet's mostly made of water. Water is pretty important, right? When we drink alcohol, alcohol loves water, so much so that it basically blocks what's in our body that tells us to retain the water and tells us to get rid of it. So that is why you have more frequent trips to the bathroom, right? So being able to make sure we're constantly staying hydrated when needed, replace water with some electrolytes, whether it's Gatorade or liquid IV or any of those things. I'm not saying do it all the time. Again, balance, moderation is everything, but making sure that you are staying hydrated all the time, not just when you're drinking, is huge. So like I touched on, planning ahead is going to be imperative for this, but outside of just planning, it is about the preparation. I've used this before, but if you are going to plan a trip, you don't just say, I am going to Europe and I'm going tomorrow. I mean, I guess maybe if you're super wealthy and you have a PJ, you could do that. But for most of us, probably anyone listening to this, no, you're going to say, I'm going to plan a trip. What do I want to do? I want to go to Europe. Okay. When can I realistically go? Let's look at 2 months from now. Okay. What are dates that work? Then we're going to book flights. We're going to book hotels. We're going to figure out what we're going to do. All of this planning goes in along with the preparation. Then we decide maybe what restaurants or what excursions we're going to do, what we're going to see when we're there. We're going to pack. We're not going to just show up there with the clothes on our back and that be it. We are going to do a bunch of preparation so that we have what we need for the trip. The same thing when it comes to food, when it comes to drinking. That's why meal prep is so beneficial, especially for those looking to maintain or lose weight. Meal prep is huge because you don't have to think about it. You've done all the preparation, then it makes it a no-brainer when it's time to eat. You're not going to be like, oh, well, I'm hungry. I have nothing to eat, so I'm going to go for that candy bar. If you already have some stuff ready, you're of course going to pick what's easy and convenient. You already have it ready. You made it. So there you go. Same thing with alcohol. I actually had a client who is going camping this weekend, and her big thing was like, okay, I'm going to allot for 2 drinks each day and the rest be free. I'm like, okay, what are the 2 drinks? She's like, what? Like, no, let's get specific. What are the 2 drinks? Are you going to pack them? Are you only going to pack those 4 drinks or those 6 drinks, depending on if you're going 2 or 3 nights? What else are you going to bring? Like, how can you set yourself up for success so that you have planned and prepared so much? Yeah, if you need to be flexible throughout, great, you can totally do that. But plan and prepare is so crucial. And I feel like most people will start to plan, but never carry through with the full preparation. So doing so can help you avoid distractions, help you avoid those, well, I'm not fully prepared, so okay, might as well. It's easy, it's convenient, it's there. I'm just going to eat, I'm just going to drink, I'm just going to whatever, right? This is again where practicing the mindfulness is going to come into play. So if you were to only do this 1 time a day for even 1 minute, you are going to notice a difference. The longer you can do it, the more consistent you can do it, the more benefits you're going to get out of it. But to practice mindfulness, it can be as simple as sitting there for 1 minute, touching base with yourself, checking in with your breath. Maybe you're doing box breaths, which would be the same numbers. We'll say 4 breaths in, hold for 4 breaths out, hold for 4. So that's something that you can do. Just doing this throughout the day is going to help you be able to touch base with yourself and get back into that not only mindset, but be more intuitive moving forward. Again, just like with everything, it's all about consistency, and whatever you practice, you're going to get really good at. So when you're going through this mindfulness practices, the more you can do it with your hunger, with your fullness, with your emotions, the better you're going to be long term. And not just for this area of consumption, but in all areas. You're also going to be a lot better at managing your stress because you're going to start feeling it. For me, I know like once I start doing this, or if I'm like getting really tight, like, okay, I need to take a break because I've gotten so stressed that I'm starting to feel it physically, meaning I've not necessarily been listening to the emotional cues. So now my body's showing the physical cues, right? Maybe you feel it in the pit of your stomach, or your chest gets a little tight, or your breathing gets a little bit heavier, or, quick, short breaths. All of these are little cues that our body's trying to tell us something's off that we need to regulate. So listen to your body. Incorporating physical activity can be huge as well. This is everything from, just very simple walks or jogs or anything to get some steps in, get some blood flowing, some movement. You don't have to lose your breath. You don't have to be sweating. You don't have to have any of that stuff. It is more just moving and getting the blood flowing. Make it something that you enjoy. If it is outdoors, so you can get the fresh air, so you can be around nature, it's going to be that much more beneficial for you. Studies have shown that being outdoors in nature is mind-blowingly different than working out indoors only. So get out. If you're with kids, even just going for a walk around the block, or with your dog or something, but just incorporating regular physical activity is going to help. It also regulates our appetite, reduces stress. It's just great for overall well-being. As with everything, seek support when you need it. Professional guidance is huge. Anytime someone says that they have a counselor or a therapist, like, I literally applaud them, because I think all of us should have one. I think it should be a part of normal healthcare, but that's just my opinion. But working with someone who you can talk to, who you can open up with, who you can be vulnerable with, is huge. Social support is a complete game changer, especially for women. We've always heard it takes a village, that it's all about community, and this is no different. I actually had a call today with someone who had said, like, this is what I've been looking for over a year. I just didn't know it existed. There is so much shame around drinking, around overconsumption of any kind, right? That's why it's Alcoholics Anonymous, Overeaters Anonymous. It's supposed to be anonymous. all that does is encourage shame and hiding and all of that around it. Where for me, with ShameOver, it is nothing about any of that shame. That's literally why it's called ShameOver. We leave that shit at the door. But you are in full control. You have all the power. So how can you harness what you're learning, what you're experiencing, and take it as nothing but stepping stones to get you closer to who you're wanting to become and who you're striving to work towards, right? So getting that support is going to be a game changer. As I've mentioned, with ShameOver, we have the ShameOver Squad. So it's basically just a membership of women who come together weekly. We connect basically daily throughout the week, depending on support levels. And it is just a way to basically be in community with others, knowing that you're not alone in a very safe, non-judgmental space. So whatever you can do to find your squad, find your village, I guarantee if you find the right group, it is going to be substantial in the difference that you see in your life, in your attitude, in your performance, in nearly every area. The stats also show that with group accountability, the success rates skyrocket from if you're just doing it by yourself. So find support, seek out whoever you feel good, you feel comfortable with. And that's the biggest thing. If it doesn't feel right to you, try something else. Nothing is a perfect fit for everyone. We know that. So stay flexible. Make sure that you can kind of go with the flow. Nothing ever goes perfectly according to plan. We know that. So allow that flexibility, but plan for those special occasions and check in and see when you do need that forgiveness, if you do overindulge, or if you need a reset. That's totally fine too. One thing that I definitely can say is when we fail to give ourselves compassion or love or that grace that we need are the times that we need it the most. So when you're being hard on yourself, remind yourself, this is the time that I need it the most, when it's the hardest to give. It's kind of like forgiving someone, right? When we forgive someone, it's not for them, it's for us. And that's kind of what this goes into. So with that, just keep on educating yourself. Knowledge is power. We know this, but just the more that you can learn and get curious, you're going to get that awareness. As I mentioned several times, you can't change anything that you're unaware of. So getting that overall awareness leads to more understanding, which leads to acceptance, and you will continue to grow and evolve into the person that you know that you can and want to become. And all of that will happen when you have the curiosity mindset. When you're the black and white thinking, all or nothing mentality, you cannot be curious because there's nothing to be curious. It's black or it's white. It's all or it's nothing. When you're curious, you're like, oh, I did overdrink yesterday. Huh, why did that happen? What did I do yesterday that I didn't do last week when I had no problem? What didn't I do? What was I feeling? What was I thinking? What can I do next time? If I could replay last night, how would I do it differently? Just get curious about this, and that is going to be the game changer. I know it sounds like I let you off the hook in a sense, and I can definitely see how it comes across that way audibly initially. What I know to be true from myself, from so many people I've worked with, even from children. All of us want to be loved and seen and heard and know that we matter and know that we are important. When we are positive, when we encourage that, we are encouraging a growth mindset. We are encouraging positivity. No matter what, you are going to have setbacks in life. You're going to have negative things that happen. When we see it negatively, it is so much harder to get back on track. It is so much easier to just say, well, screw it. I already drank, so might as well drink the rest of the week and I can start again on Monday, right? When we have that growth mindset, when we are curious, if we have a bad day, we know that's all it is. You look at the best athletes in the world, the top athletes. There's not a single one that is 100% across their lifespan undefeated. They're not. I watched a interview with Tom Brady the other day. It's very hard for me to say this because I'm a Broncos fan, no matter how bad we are. And, Tom Brady's just love to hate him. I respect the guy, but love to hate him. But he had said, the wins, yeah, they're great. I learned so much more from the losses than I could ever learn from a win. So that's what I encourage you all to take away from this is when you do have those missteps, when you have those bad days, or maybe it turns into a bad week, what can you learn from it? You're going to learn a lot from that moment than if you just bash on yourself and never doing that again, and then see yourself there the next week. Take time to just get curious about it. And most of all, show yourself that love and that grace and that compassion. That is all I have for you. I hope that this has been an enjoyable and informative talk with some key takeaways on how you can make this work, not only when it comes to drinking, obviously eating, but all sorts of consumption. So again, thank you, Christy Harrison, for writing the life-changing book for me, The Anti-Diet. I highly recommend everyone to get it. I've done the audiobook, absolutely recommend it. It's fantastic. But just remember, as you're going through this, again, the love, the grace, the compassion, and just constantly checking in with yourself and listening to your intuition and what your body, your mind, your soul is telling you. With that, if you enjoyed this, please like it or subscribe or share it. There is nothing better than something like that that can help me grow and help me reach more people to be able to help with moderation is best always. With that, feel free to reach out. I am at Master Moderation on Instagram, at Lose the Hangover on Facebook, and at ShameOver. I will hopefully very soon be getting those all together in one place. But until next time, can't wait to see you all, hear from you, and as always, you deserve it, you're worth it, your future self thanks you. Have a great day. See you soon.